tuberculosis, a scourge some 40 years ago. In 1948 alone, over 1,600 people died from tuberculosis. The Public Health Service had the burden of controlling this disease. It was a dreaded disease which many feared. Even until today, this fear remains.
The problem of tuberculosis was very rife in Asia and also bad in Singapore. For every 8 persons coming in with fever and cough, with chest problem, you can almost be certain it was tuberculosis. Because of his work, we were able to get rid of this very bad disease in Singapore. At that time, the treatment was 2 years, but because of Supramaniam's work, we were able to control to make a positive sputum of TB to negative sputum in 6 months. It's amazing. We had the triple treatment, and he added in another treatment called rifampicin, and that really brought the treatment faster to be controlled.
Living in housing conditions then were poor, overcrowded, and unhygienic. This was conducive to the spread of TB.
Many of the patients who came for treatment at Tan Tock Seng Hospital were patients who had very advanced or fairly advanced disease, and they had symptoms of cough, coughing out blood, of losing weight, and being really in poor health.
It was estimated that 1 out of 20 persons living in the city had TB. In order to arrest the disease, early detection was crucial. Thus began Singapore's battle against TB.
The nearest I will give will be like soldiers, they're going to war. A soldier, if he's motivated properly, he'll give his life. And how many times small group can take on 3 times the size? Just because of the words, the emotions that's being evoked.
A mass X-ray campaign was launched on the 1st of July 1958. It was a pioneer survey aimed at discovering the spread of TB in both urban and rural areas.
He also introduced a lot of important chest X-ray for all normal people who enter into service.
The medical staff went to the community centers and schools to conduct the X-ray exercise. In order to encourage the working population to turn up for the exercise, X-ray hours were extended to 10 in the evening. For many, being X-rayed was a new experience.
He made sure that all the school children got their BCG. So Singapore was under very good, proper management of tuberculosis.
BCG vaccination was made compulsory for newborn infants as well as school children. These vaccinations helped to protect and immunize the young against TB. To drive the message further home, anti-TB exhibitions were held. This was not only to allay the fears of the people, but also to educate the public on the necessity of X-ray screenings. At that time, Tan Tock Seng was the main hospital for treating TB. The control unit also monitored new cases that were being discovered.
Dr. Supramaniam was a household name when I was growing up. He came across when I was growing up as the consummate physician, someone who was wise, learned, totally dedicated to the public healthcare system, and actually, in my mind, totally synonymous with the development of Tan Tock Seng Hospital. It was well known that Tan Tock Seng went from just a chest hospital to having Singapore's famous neurosurgical departments, cardiothoracic departments. This was Singapore in the 1960s and 1970s, a very different Singapore from what it is now. I mean, when I graduated in 1981, we were reusing needles, and I had to buy my own needles and to draw blood. And for Dr. Supramaniam to develop neurosurgery and cardiothoracic surgery at a time when Singapore was still very much third world. It's really remarkable.
I was posted to Tan Tock Seng Hospital in 1963. He was head of the C department. Suddenly I found my boss a very affable man. He was very kind, soft-spoken, and he made us all feel very comfortable, and he's not one of those very tough bosses. He was in fact a good team leader. Every morning when I waited for him to do the walk round, it was a real pleasure. You know, when you have a chief coming for a walk round, normally you get all shaken up, you know, whether you've done anything wrong or not. You just look forward to his visit to the ward. We took him round to every bed and he discussed the cases, how you've handled it, any changes been made, very detailed. And he was very kind to the patients. Most of them were C-class patients. They were not paying patients. They were really government-supported patients, but they were treated as though they are paid patients. I mean, that's the beauty about it. So money is of no issue here at all. It's just focusing on how to treat your patients well. And that's something we all learn from him.
They used to call him Superman, Supramaniam as Superman. And Supramaniam was a Hindu god. If he was shy of his own self, shy of his parents, he would have changed the name. For him to keep that name as flagship and keep on to his faith is the greatest thing. He is a capable, great administrator, which I appreciated only when I went from Singapore General Hospital to Tan Tock Seng for a stint. The comparison is great. Singapore General Hospital is the Wild West. Anything goes. Whereas I saw the peaceful meetings in Tan Tock Seng, where the administrator, James, starts a meeting. He's able to start a meeting with a prayer. And with the support of the whole audience, nobody takes it amiss. In fact, I enjoy it. And if he didn't do it again, I would have been disappointed.
What I'd like to emphasize from my perspective is that he was a man of faith. He was a lay leader in the Methodist movement in Malaya and Singapore. When it was time for the Methodist Church in Malaya and Singapore to become independent from the United Methodist Church in the US, he played a very key role in drafting the constitution of the new entity. He also played a very important role in the ACS school in Singapore. He was a board member for almost 20 years. He is known for having resisted any development of unhealthy elitism. So it's always this vertical direction towards God, giving him the foundation and strength and motive for his horizontal relationships, his service to people. He walked with what I would say peace and poise in the midst of great demanding responsibilities that required so much from him. So much so that in later years, the jobs that he did are now done by many, many people. That's the caliber of that man.
We live in a time now where every country has its challenges. Singapore has to solve its problems. It's great if we can get help from the rest of the world, but ultimately Singapore has to solve its problems. And it's the legacy of people like Dr. Supramaniam who started us off on that footing where we have the ability, we have the potential to not only create knowledge but to learn from the best and contextualize and use it for the best of our community. The title of the book may be He Saved Thousands, but I would say he inspired generations. My generation of doctors would not be where we are today if it was not for leaders like Dr. Supramaniam.
I think he left his legacy to many of us. We are very grateful to him. He was a great man.